Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. It's Monday, December 20th, 2021. Let's talk boxing. This last weekend had some spectacular fights. Let's focus on one. The best attempt to beat Arthur Beterbiev that I've seen. That was done by Marcus Browne. Very bloody affair. It seems to me in 2021, we let fighters bleed a lot more than we used to. Right? Beterbiev's cut is so bad that at different times you see the towels they're using to try to mop up the blood that's pouring from his forehead. Understand how bad the cut is. If it's below the eye, you don't have to worry about it pouring into the eye. This is right in the middle of his forehead. The blood is coming down. There's urgency. Beterbiev, who's high volume as it is even higher volume. Right? The referee decides not to stop the fight in a fight that was very competitive. Let me also deviate from the referee and from the public. I've looked at the punch that opens the cut. Right? It's not a clash of heads, folks. I don't care what they're saying on the telecast. It looks to me like they're together. Beterbiev starts to back away. Now here's the problem I have with Beterbiev. He's so accustomed to being alpha that as he backs away, it's just outside the range of his comprehension that a fighter could be prepared to counter him. So I see an excellent right hook thrown by Marcus Browne that hits Beterbiev right where he starts bleeding. Now it's important because, of course, if that cut is caused by a punch and the fight is stopped because Beterbiev cannot continue, he loses his title. Instead, the referee calls it a clash of heads. Right? Folks, I encourage you to look at the film. Let me also say, too, that Marcus Browne got together with Errol Spence's trainer, Derek James. You need to be aware of that because Marcus Browne, and he lost the fight. I'm not here saying he won the fight on my scorecard. I had him losing more rounds than Arthur Beterbiev. Obviously, he gets stopped. But even just in the course of the fight, I thought Beterbiev was winning. But boxing's actually a strategy sport. Right? Sure. The physical part matters, but let's just say the mental part, in my opinion, matters more. And it's fascinating that against a pressure fighter, Derek James and Marcus Browne come up with a plan where Marcus Browne is going to go to the body. Right? I want people to look at the film. Look past the poker face of Arthur Beterbiev. Right? We'll call him AB here. Why? Because it's easier on me. Right? Let's say AB comes in. He gets hit with body shots as he's trying to find Marcus Browne's head, which Browne is keeping low and close to Beterbiev. So Browne has a little strategy where he's not going to make his head easy to hit. Beterbiev is a bit too square. Right? He's coming in such a way where he's in front of Marcus Browne. His body is exposed. He's so high volume, he doesn't have his hands protecting his body. Now, Beterbiev has a poker face. He needed a poker face because he's getting hit with withering body shots. That's actually Marcus Browne's best work. The problem is that it's hard for the judges to see, right? It's clear on video. You see Marcus Browne, he leans in, he's loading up on body shots. If you're a judge looking at Beterbiev's back, you might notice Beterbiev magnificently cutting off the ring. He cuts off the ring with the best of them. You might notice that his foot speed is underrated, right? Beterbiev, especially when he's bleeding, like Marvin Hagler against Thomas Hearns, right? The minute Beterbiev senses that he's bleeding, he panics a little bit. You get the feeling he thought there was a chance the ref might stop the fight. Browne does get off to a good start in the match. Beterbiev doesn't even want to risk the scorecards, right? The bleeding starts in like the 4th round. So Beterbiev is on his front foot. He's pressuring Browne. If you're a judge looking from the back, it might look like he's walking down Browne, as Browne is countering him magnificently to the body. Beterbiev makes sure that he doesn't look like he's getting hit with anything. Quite frankly, if you're a fight fan, you don't care about his facial expressions. You know Marcus Browne is a boxer puncher. Browne carries power. You see Marcus Browne able to get clean shots to a guy's body, and you start thinking to yourself, Canelo's an excellent body puncher. Look at that Liam Smith fight. Is there a way for Canelo to hide his head and to beat Arthur Beterbiev by going to his body? I think it's an open question. Let's say, as determined as Beterbiev looked, and he looked good in this fight, two-handed, power in both hands, no question about it. Intelligent front foot, right? He's coming in too square, but you notice he's not just walking in, right? He's kind of like Brian Castano. He walks up to you, then he's pivoting, right? This isn't a straight line fighter. When he comes up to the pocket, he doesn't just keep going straight. He actually moves left and right, depending on the look you give him. But I would argue that Beterbiev's body is open for a body puncher. You know, you're going to have to go through hell to get to the body, because obviously Beterbiev throws a mean body shot himself. Right? But I will say, too, that Beterbiev is a bit too predictable. Right? I believe, just like how he gets cut backing up for a moment, if you can tilt him backward, same with Teofimo Lopez, if you could get these guys on their back foot a little bit, just stop them from coming forward. The guy's not the same guy. He simply isn't. Let me also say, too, that I'd like to know who the doctor was who looked at Beterbiev's cut. This must have been the same guy from the Otto Wallin-Tyson Fury fight. You see Beterbiev, there's blood all over his face. The cut is just bleeding, right? There's no way to argue that the cut's not bleeding. The cut is above his eyes. There's no way to argue that the blood isn't flowing down his face into his eyes. Right? He's bleeding profusely. Profusely. You know, if the doctor is not going to stop the fight, in a fight like this, why have a doctor at all? What would it take for the cut to warrant stopping the fight? What, the blood actually gushing onto the doctor? I was astonished. You know, both guys get checked out by the doctor. You're looking at Marcus Browne, and you're thinking, well, he's not that badly cut. When they look at Beterbiev, I believe even Beterbiev thought the fight was going to be stopped. It was not. Right? So, let me say Browne eventually could not stop the onslaught. Right? Browne started getting hit himself in the body and in the head. In other words, Browne's strategy was great in order to get him to land some body shots. The problem was he's against an offensive juggernaut. Now let me say this, and I don't say it lightly, right? Marcus Browne made a decision to be willing to back up to the ropes against the front foot heavy Beterbiev. Now we've watched fighters. Let me mention him in yet another video, Floyd Mayweather, where a guy has him hurt in the middle of the ring. Right? Shane Mosley against Floyd Mayweather. And Mayweather does not back up. Will not go over to the ropes. Isn't that something for someone to consider? Against Arthur Beterbiev. If you look up Beterbiev highlights, the first thing you notice is that Beterbiev has a guy pinned on the ropes. That's the first thing you notice. Let me also say this too. If Beterbiev comes in relatively square, right, he's pivoting and stuff, but you notice it's a two-handed attack. He's not tripling up on the right hand. No, it's left, right, left, right. Wouldn't a Mayweather, wouldn't a Bernard Hopkins give you a side profile? You can't hit a fighter legally in the back of the head. Shouldn't Marcus Browne have had it worked out a little bit better, where he's in the middle of the ring and he's sticking his shoulder in Beterbiev's chest? And rather than look at Beterbiev with both eyes straight, so Beterbiev can pick which hand he's going to hit you with, wouldn't a Mayweather or a Bernard Hopkins, two of the better guys at coming in with a side profile, wouldn't they give you the side eye? Isn't the point of looking at you out of their left eye to neutralize your right hand? Because if you're a hooker, and that's primarily what Beterbiev throws. He's not throwing Deontay Wilder's straight right hands. It's not who he is. He needs to be close to you. He doesn't have a lot of ring coverage. Couldn't you neutralize half of him by just giving a side profile where your shoulder is in the middle of his body? Understand, Beterbiev isn't the guy who circles you. He's not Mr. Lateral Movement. It's not like you put your shoulder, and I know it sounds easier than it is, you put your shoulder in his chest. Beterbiev is not the kind of guy who's suddenly going to get on his toes and dance. So you have to actually try to pick how to put your shoulder in his chest. Right? No, this guy is coming in and he's throwing punches. Not only that, at times he's defenseless. Right? Now, granted, you have to be able to dodge his heavy shots to get in the counter. But my point to you is, it's a shame. We don't have the Floyd Mayweather type fighter who can just draw a line in the sand and say, look, you're going to have to deal with my defense. I'm not going over to the ropes. You're going to run into my shoulder. If you get sloppy and you back up too far, I'm going to hit you with a left hook. Right? If you keep coming in, then I'm going to get low. And I'm going to, and I believe this is what Marcus Browne was trying to do, I'm going to plant my head on your abdomen. where you can't hit me. Right, so Marcus Browne, it's a bold attempt. This is the best challenge to Beterbiev. But Marcus Browne could not keep the fight in the middle of the ring. He just couldn't. When you are over by the ropes against Arthur Beterbiev, you are exactly where he wants you to be. Right? Let me also say, too, Marcus Browne has a pretty good jab. Right? I believe at the beginning of rounds, because at the beginning of rounds, Arthur Beterbiev is not in your face, right? He's in the other corner. Marcus Browne, for the first 30 seconds of every round, should have made a concerted effort to have Beterbiev walk into jabs. Now, Beterbiev, comes in and he's a bit clever in terms of, moving. As I said, he gets to the pocket, then he starts pivoting. Throw the jab at his chest. If he gets by the jab, don't back up. Don't back up. Turn your body so that if he's going to use one of his hands, because again, Beterbiev is too predictable with the punch pattern. If he's going to use one of his hands, make sure that the best he could do if he throws a hook is to hit you in your back or the back of your head. Right? They claim, and it's a shame I haven't seen film of the fight, but they claim that the first time Ezzard Charles fought Rocky Marciano, Charles's back did not touch the ropes for the first 14 rounds. Now, how's that possible against a heavy-hitting, aggressive, relentless knockout puncher like Rocky Marciano? But yet it happened. Right? Google that fight. Right? It happened. Here, if you're fighting Arthur Beterbiev, spacing has to be paramount. You can't go back to the ropes against a guy with a 100% KO percentage. Think about that. Two-time Olympian. Folks, his fights have never gone the distance. Right? Think about it. Also, this fight. Marcus Browne, who's a warrior. Right? This is a guy who got up 3 times against Jean Pascal. Here, the last knockdown told you all you needed to know. Marcus Browne looked like Lyndon Arthur looked against Anthony Yarde. Right? The ref is counting. Marcus Browne looks completely conscious. He looks at the referee and you could tell. He thought, should I get up and continue to get beaten by this man? Or should I just let the count continue? And you got the feeling. The ref hits 8, and Marcus Browne looks at him and understands, this is the end of my night. I cannot keep this man off of me. Now, I believe Bivol is the best at light heavy, but I'll agree. Bivol's going to have to show an ability to stay in the middle of the ring. Whether that's the Floyd Mayweather route, where the guy walks into your shoulder and you can actually stand there. Mayweather gets hit hard multiple times by Shane Mosley. At one point, he grabs Mosley's hand, right? Grabs his arm. But he stays in the middle of the ring, right? He understood. Mosley's too dangerous for me to back up to the ropes when I'm hurt. Right? Fighters need to develop that skill level. Also, a Canelo, great body puncher. Right? And Canelo's shorter, so he can get under you. Hit Golovkin, heavy-handed guy. heavy-handed guy, several times in the body in their rematch. Right? A Canelo looking at this film, seeing the number of body shots that Marcus Browne landed, has to be encouraged. So let's just say this was a great performance by Arthur Beterbiev. Right? When the blood starts flowing, Beterbiev decides he's going to get even more aggressive, if that's possible. Then you start to see hand speed you did not know he has. Let me also say, too, Beterbiev has an interesting center of gravity. Right? Again, keep in mind, Marcus Browne has fought Badou Jack. Marcus Browne has fought Jean Pascal. Marcus Browne is a guy who can deal with rough and tumble. It looks like Beterbiev is throwing arm punches. He has a certain Vitaly Klitschko quality. Looks like he's throwing arm punches. But you notice Marcus Browne, professional prize fighter who's been in big professional fights against guys with punches, looks hurt. Looks like the punches hurt. You're looking at the fight and you're thinking, man, I'm just glad I'm not Marcus Browne right now. Right? Clearly, Beterbiev has punching power, even when the punch looks like it's an arm punch. So let me congratulate Beterbiev. The boxing world needs to keep an eye on him. You mean to tell me that there is a champion with a 100% KO ratio? 100%. And he's stopping people like Marcus Browne. Right? Kudos to the champ. Let's just say, though, that none of us are perfect. All you have to do is see the punch. It's the last punch that lands before the blood starts flowing from Marcus Browne. And you just have to ask yourself, how open was Beterbiev for that punch? You cannot have defensive lapses like that facing a Bivol or a Canelo. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this video. Gamblers were taken care of. The hedge. Beterbiev by KO. Held. Right? Just understand, that's what Beterbiev does. I would have rather have gotten the 7.5 to 1 on Browne to win. And Browne was courageous. But at the end of the day, the hedge held. You can battle another day. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.